Hey guys, what's up? This is Diego here at Cinemageddon Reviews. So, as I say at the end of every video, supporting our Patreon is very much appreciated. Although one of the things that I should mention more often is that if you do become a patron, one of the benefits is that you get the chance to request a movie or show you like to see us talk about in the future. So what I'm here to do today is to fulfill the request of one of our patrons, a person by the name of Chelsea A. Crandall. Recently, Chelsea requested that we cover the LEGO Movie franchise. That includes the LEGO Movie, the LEGO Batman movie, the LEGO Ninjago movie, and the LEGO Movie 2, the second part. We're going to go in that exact order as we cover each of these films. And one more thing before we get started, this is going to contain heavy spoilers for all of these films. You have been warned. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the film that started it all. So in this movie, Chris Pratt voices Emmett, a construction worker living in the metropolitan city of Bricksburg. One day, he comes across Elizabeth Banks' character Wildstyle and embarks on an epic adventure to stop the villainous Lord Business, voiced by Will Ferrell, from gluing everything in existence into his vision of perfection with his secret weapon, the Kraggle. I remember when this movie first came out, it seemed a little bit like a cash grab to me, to be honest. I didn't really see the potential in making a LEGO movie. I always just kind of gravitated towards other types of toys as a kid. But obviously, the LEGO Movie resonated with quite a few people, and not just fans of LEGO. It was extremely successful worldwide, and a lot of people that I talked to about it said some pretty positive things about it. And after finally checking it out, I can see the appeal because I enjoy this movie quite a bit. Obviously, a big part of what makes this movie special is the animation style, that sort of simulated stop-motion animation that was very much inspired by the Brick films, which use real stop-motion. And obviously, things like the skies and certain explosions and effects in the movie are composited, but certain things like individual characters and some of the more close-up environments look almost like they're props on a miniature set. It's so well done that that's actually what I thought it was until I looked it up. And that animation style sucks you into the film pretty much immediately. When you first see Bricksburg, it's mesmerizing, the attention to detail and how much like a stop-motion environment it actually looks like. You can instantly tell that this movie was made by people who cared about LEGO and its fans. The animation also enhances the visual aesthetic of the action scenes. These are some very exciting and visually pleasing action scenes, but the thing that makes them pop is how things that explode and come apart are made with bricks and move in simulated stop motion. It makes it like twice as interesting to watch. In addition to the animation, part of the charm of the film also goes into the music. In particular, I have to mention the song Everything is Awesome, which is one heck of an earwig. This was nominated for Best Original Song at the Oscars, and I can see why, because it's really catchy. In fact, I've often found myself either humming or whistling it at work. Now obviously, none of this would even be half as memorable without a competent screenplay behind it. And the LEGO Movie has a pretty effective story to tell with some pretty well utilized themes about how believing in yourself can help you achieve anything you want. This is a really well-crafted comedy adventure film with some pretty hilarious gags and memorable characters, and I'll admit it does take a while before it really starts hitting home emotionally, but the animation and the humor carry you through the whole way. It's very fast-paced and witty. I also appreciate the ties to the real world as well, with things like the Kraggle, Taco Tuesday, and the Blade of Absolute Zero, if I'm not mistaken.
Robots, bring me the sword of exact zero.
It's used as really good foreshadowing for the eventual twist at the end of the film. It was not only really original, but also pretty bold of them to do, and it makes the movie feel that much more special. The characters are another standout of the story, and voice acting by folks like Chris Pratt, Elizabeth Banks, Liam Neeson, and Morgan Freeman, they make for a really diverse and colorful cast, and, of course, Will Ferrell as Lord Business will always be iconic. Now, I will admit, I did think Emmett was a bit basic at first, and it wasn't until the second half that I really started to see the appeal behind him, and I think that was really my biggest flaw with the movie. But for the most part, I think the LEGO Movie was pretty good, definitely one of the strongest entries in the franchise. Now, I mentioned how memorable the characters in the LEGO Movie were, but I didn't mention which one specifically was my absolute favorite. Which brings us to the next entry in the franchise. This movie is a spin-off based on the LEGO Multiverse's version of Batman, where the Caped Crusader has to change his selfish ways following the rise of Gotham's new police commissioner, Barbara Gordon, as well as his adoption of the young orphan Dick Grayson. I was surprised to see how much more meta this movie was in the original. One of the most memorable aspects in this movie for me was just how many references to previous iterations of Batman there were. And the comedic jabs were pretty clever, but fortunately, they don't rely on it too much to where it becomes annoying. So what makes LEGO Batman my favorite character in the entire franchise is that he is the perfect personification of people who don't understand Batman. He's the right amount of charming and egotistical, but also commentary on the toxicity of the fanbase, as well as on the flaws and tropes of the Batman movies. And of course, Will Arnett does a great job. He gives off that cocky, exaggerated energy that is normally a stereotype in Batman movies, but in this case it makes him stand out from other adaptations of the character. I also enjoyed how his character arc is essentially a message to the fans and the filmmakers about how misunderstanding the character is what's ruining Batman. And it's actually kind of ironic and a little funny how this movie, that is not even supposed to be a straightforward Batman movie, understands Batman more than actual straightforward Batman movies. I know Sebastian agrees with me on this. But despite how egotistical Batman is in this movie, they actually do a really good job of humanizing him and bringing him down to earth. And I found the character of Dick Grayson to be pretty endearing. He and Barbara Gordon add a really refreshing family dynamic to the story, and given Batman's self-centered demeanor, it's actually kind of something that helps us relate to him a lot more. I will say, the only thing that I actually didn't enjoy about this movie was the Joker. In this movie, Joker openly addresses that he wants to feel Batman's hate because it's what makes him feel validated. But instead, Batman just kind of feels indifferent towards him, which sends him on this weird journey to seek revenge against him, and it created this weird dynamic that kind of took me out of the movie. Now, I understand that the Joker using Batman as his source of validation is actually true to the comics, and I understand that since this is a comedy movie geared towards a younger audience, that they have to play it for humor, but the way they handled it made it seem so forced, and because of that, it made the humor feel forced too. It's like a neglected son seeking validation from his father type of thing, but it's also trying to be a rivalry, and I think those two concepts are too opposite to be equal. And the way that they used it for humor kind of canceled out the emotional aspect for me, so not only is he a weak villain, he also has kind of a weak motivation. Overall, though, I did enjoy watching the Lego Batman movie. It's a great comedy film despite this one flaw, and it's still an excellent tribute to one of my favorite superheroes. It also makes a great addition to the Lego movie franchise. Not like this next film, though. In this movie, Dave Franco voices Lloyd, the estranged son of the notorious supervillain Lord Garmadon, who frequently attacks a city within the LEGO multiverse called Ninjago. Because of his relation to Garmadon, Lloyd is despised by most of the citizens, but unbeknownst to them, Lloyd's secret identity is the Green Ninja, a member of an elite team of ninjas searching for a way to permanently vanquish Garmadon. I know that Ninjago has a huge following, and it's one of LEGO's most successful properties with a hit TV show and some pretty successful playsets. And for the record, I do see the appeal in this movie. There are a few things that I like about it. I like the team dynamic between the main team of ninjas. It's got a real vibe of Power Rangers meets Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I think the cast is pretty cool overall. My favorite performance is actually by Dave Franco. His voice work actually makes the character seem grounded and relatable. And by far the funniest gag in the entire film is the appearance of the giant cat. And it's not because it's actually funny, but because the cat was cute. And that's really it. Aside from that, I'm going to be completely honest, I found this movie to be very boring and formulaic. It was very underwhelming, and the story basically did nothing to add to the LEGO franchise. Probably the biggest reason for that is, for a long time, this movie stops being about the ninjas trying to take down Garmadon, and more just a weird father-son road trip movie with ninja action scenes. All the other characters sort of move into the background, while Lloyd and Garmadon gain this weird father-son dynamic that just really didn't work for me. I think the main reason for that is that Garmadon in this movie is established as this permanently inept villain with hardly any established motivation. It makes it kind of hard to relate to him as a human character, and for that reason, it's kind of hard to relate to Lloyd for trying to reconcile his differences to him. This is something that the LEGO Batman movie did much better between Batman and Robin, and that movie was released just a few months before this one, so I'm actually surprised that they handled it this poorly. Even the real-world stuff was extremely boring and disappointing. In the original film, you had Will Ferrell and his son, and they were both dealing with problems that were essentially parallels to what was happening in the LEGO universe, and that added a lot of really clever humor to the story. In this one, we have Jackie Chan, who, don't get me wrong, does an okay job with what he's given as both the narrator and the ninja's master, but he has a surprisingly minimal performance as both of these characters. So this was definitely the low point in the franchise, but fortunately, the next movie makes for an excellent return to form. 5 years after the events of the original film, we rejoin Emmett, Lucy, and the rest of the gang as they embark on a quest to prevent the prophetic end of days known as Armageddon, which begins when Queen Whatever Wannabe of the Sistar system marries Batman. The LEGO Movie 2 was, in my opinion, just as good as the original. The humor was on point, the character development was compelling, and the story was once again very entertaining. I do appreciate the nods to other movies such as Jurassic World and Mad Max, which add a lot both to the humor and the world building. One thing that makes this movie stand out from the others is the music, which is even better in this one than it was in the original. The music isn't just catchy, but has some pretty hilarious gags. I think my favorite of these is the end credits rap song.
It's the credits, yeah, that's the best part. When the movie ends and the reading starts, you can keep your adventure and all that action. 'Cause the credits of the film are the main attraction.
Another thing I appreciated was the animation style of the new characters from the Sistar system. I thought it was a really clever touch to make them look like they were created and controlled by a little girl. It makes the universe feel more authentic and lived in. It also serves as really good tie-ins to the real world stuff, which is once again utilized excellently. Some of these scenes are actually really good development for Emmett as he goes down this path to becoming Rex Dangervest. And even though this was kind of the weakest part of the film for me, I still had a good time watching it. And just like the other films in the franchise, the Lego Movie 2 has a ton of exciting and well-crafted action. I would say that these are some of my favorite action scenes since the original. The third act alone is explosive and a ton of fun, but this time I did feel like it was a lot more emotionally compelling, especially on Emmett's side of things. So overall, guys, the Lego Movie franchise has its ups and downs. It's not perfect, and the Lego Ninjago movie is very disappointing, but I did enjoy the other three films, and for the most part, I do enjoy what this franchise has to offer. The animation is stunning, the character development in most films is pretty well done, the action scenes are spectacular, and the humor in all but one film is great. It's meta, it's refreshing, and it's very fast-paced. I definitely see the appeal that the fans see, and I'm on board. I'm on board with this franchise. And fortunately, even though Warner Brothers terminated their deal with LEGO for more LEGO movies, not all hope is lost, because Universal recently picked up the rights to the LEGO Movie franchise, and it was recently announced that a third LEGO movie is on the way. So I am looking forward to seeing the LEGO Movie Part 3, but in the meantime, it's time for ratings. So the LEGO Movie gets a 9 out of 10 for being an overall good adventure with some stunning animation and some really good use of humor despite having a weak protagonist in the first half. The LEGO Batman Movie gets an 8 out of 10 for being a hilarious, exciting, self-aware tribute to Batman and its fans despite having a weak villain. The Lego Ninjago movie gets a 3 out of 10 because while it did have a sympathetic protagonist and a pretty surprising twist with a giant cat, it basically had nothing special to offer and had almost no laughs in it. The Lego Movie 2, the second part, gets a 9 out of 10 because despite a somewhat predictable twist with its villain, I still had just as good a time with it as the original, and it had enough fresh ideas with its animation and its characters to keep you invested all the way through. And those are my thoughts on the LEGO Movie franchise. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I would like to give a shout out once again to Chelsea A. Crandall for submitting this request for this review on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting Cinemageddon Reviews, and I hope that you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did covering these films. I hope you can consider this your Christmas present from us, and with that said, thank you, and Merry Christmas to you, or Happy Holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe, follow us on all our social medias, and please support our Patreon so you can get the chance to request a movie or show you'd like to see us talk about next. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Diego for Cinemageddon Reviews, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.